Hey guys, Mike here with EBR, and this is the Model S from Electric Bike Company. Now, on surface, this may just look like any other beach cruiser, but there's a lot going on under the hood here, and even more importantly, imagine a bike when you order, you can customize and pick nearly every aspect of the bike, from tires and bars and seats to colors and materials. There's a lot to do when you buy this bike. And imagine a bike that comes fully assembled and ready to ride right out of the box. So stick around with me and let's kind of explore further the Model S from Electric Bike Company. So guys, the Model S by Electric Bike Company is, well, as you can see, it's an electric beach cruiser. Now this bike ships as a Class 2 bike, meaning it's capped at 20 miles an hour, which is pretty consistent with a cruiser theme. But should you want that extra speed and go up to 28 miles an hour, you can have this bike unlocked and get that Class 3 capability. Now the bike is UL compliant, and its starting MSRP is $2,199, and then that can change based on how you decide to outfit your bike, or you can keep it at that price and pick from some of their just pre-made models. Now we should talk about the assembly process and the shipping process, because that's something that's very unique only to Electric Bike Company. So starting off, they're an American-based, and all these bikes are American-made. They are headquartered out of California, and that includes a custom woodworking shop, a custom paint shop, and their own wheel shop where they build and true wheels in-house. So we're kind of off to a really good start. Now, when you go to order your bike, you'll be seeing a bunch of options where you can kind of pick and choose how you want to outfit your bike. And once you do that, they will receive the build sheet, and they will assign that build sheet to one specific mechanic, who that one mechanic will oversee your build and personally build your bike from start to finish based on your preferences. This doesn't go through an assembly line. This isn't just part of a bigger process. This is one dedicated mechanic who builds your electric cruiser. Now, another part of that is once that mechanic has finished building the bike to your specifications, they will then go through and inspect the bike, ensure all the QC parts are met. Then they will also go ahead and pack that bike, and that's another interesting aspect. So they use bigger boxes because they completely assemble the bike, including air pressure, making sure your gears are shifting correctly, all the bolts are tightened, and they put it into a box that's a larger, oversized box. But that's nice because then when that arrives at your house, you simply open the box, roll the bike out ready to ride, and just simply lift the handlebars up and tighten them in place. They're already installed, they're just loosely down so they can fit in the box. And that's really it. With other brands, you're gonna get your bike in a box as well, but it'll be a much smaller box because they've broken the bike down into more pieces, ultimately giving you more assembly and things to deal with at your house. So if you're not someone who likes to deal with the assembly of a bike, or maybe it's a little intimidating, this would be a brand that should be on your short list. So when it comes to colors on this frame, so you can do 10 free colors that they offer, which are your pretty standard colors. This is one of the free colors, it's their light blue, looks really nice. But you can also add or pick from basically any color that you can get the code for, they can make in their in-house paint shop, or you can pick from one of their almost 200 available options on their website, and you can really kind of get the color you want. And their color process or their painting process is pretty in-depth, and it gives a nice final good product. And that's their 6-step process, which involves cleaning the frame, doing a primer coat, then they do 3 coats of your paint color, and then an additional 2 coats of clear coat. So you get a very deep, what I think is going to be a very durable and long-lasting paint job that really does look very nice when you get the final product. Now, when it comes to sizing on this Model S, it only comes in one frame size, but they have 2 ways of configuring who it fits. You can opt between 24-inch wheels and 26-inch wheels. Now, the ones on this bike are 24-inch wheels, and that's designed to fit riders from 5 foot flat up to 6'8". Now, if you opt for the 26-inch wheels, that's designed to fit riders from 5'2" all the way up to 6'10". Now, I have no one in my office that's 6'10", nor am I, I'm 5'11", but I can tell you riding this bike, even with the 24-inch wheels, it's just comfortable, and I think I have a lot of room to go up or down in height, and it would still fit me just fine. Now, one thing that's interesting about these frames is they say they use double the thickness of other brands. And while I haven't cut this bike's frame in half to verify that, I can say when you have a step-through frame like this, you do tend to feel some flex in these as you get going and turn. But this has very little flex. It feels very solid, and I think that's likely attributed to what they say is their thicker frame materials that ultimately leads to a more stable ride. Now the max payload on the Model S is 420 pounds, so a pretty substantial max payload. And that's gonna be the same payload regardless of whether wheel size you pick. The Model S in general has that max 420 payload. Now the bike itself weighs 54 pounds, but that's without any optional accessories. Once you put all the accessories on, plus this additional battery you have in the basket, the bike weighs closer to about 65 pounds on this specific model. Now, some geometry numbers on this bike. The standover height, so the height to kind of just step over this frame right here at the lowest point, is 18 inches, which is a nice low, easy on, easy off, especially if you have concerns about stability or balance. This just makes things a little bit easier. Now, the seat post has around 8 inches of adjustability in it. The reach is around 17 inches, and then your wheelbase from front hub to rear hub is about 48 inches. Now, when it comes to colors on the Model S, and really any bike from Electric Bike Company, that's where you kind of have endless options. So they have 10 free colors you can pick from, and this light blue was one of those free colors. But should you want something with some metallic flake or something a little bit fancier, if you have a code from a paint shop that you want put on this bike, not only does EBC have around 200-ish you can just pick from right on the website, but then you can provide them with that code for a custom color and they can match that as well. So you really can do any color you want on the frame, the rack, the battery box, the front suspension fork, the basket, even the fenders. If you opt for the metal fenders, you really can do any custom colors you want, and that includes a frame color and accent colors. Any way you want to do it, they can get it done for you, and that's just kind of the beauty of having that in-house paint shop. Now, when it comes to tires and wheels, like I said earlier, you can pick between 24-inch wheels or 26-inch. This bike has the 24-inch wheels, and they are wrapped in Electric Bike Company's 24 by 2.1-inch EBC tires with puncture protection. And these also have the nice tan sidewalls, so like a tan and white look. They have a nice cruiser tread pattern on them, and these have some puncture protection as well. When it comes to fenders for this bike, you have two options. You might notice these are the wood fenders, and that is another cool feature of EBC. They have their own in-house custom woodworking shop where they have someone who is dedicated to build out fenders and chain guards for your specific bike, where they cut the wood, they put it all together, they shape it, they form it, they paint it, and they weatherproof it, and you get this nice finished kind of beachy boardwalk look. I think it looks really nice on a beach cruiser. Now, if this is not your style, you can always opt for a more standard metal chain guard and fenders, and then have those painted any color you want. Another really cool feature. When it comes to racks on this, you're going to have a rear rack on the Model S regardless, because that's where they house the battery. You can kind of see poking out right here. It is permanently installed in here. It probably could be removed, but you'd be kind of disassembling this rear end to get it out. The good thing about that is no one's ever going to walk away with your battery. It's physically a part of your bike, which I kind of like personally. The rack is a MIC rack, which is a pretty cool feature. So MIC racks, M-I-K, we call them MIC racks. They're basically compatible with MIC parts. So this bag system here is MIC compatible. The baskets are MIC compatible. You can go to Amazon, your local bike shop. You can find MIC compatible rack accessories everywhere in the country, and that makes that really cool. It's not just proprietary to EBC, and you're not left with bungee cords and straps trying to figure out how to store your gear safely, but then have easy on and easy off access with MIC compatibility. It's just a really cool retention system that keeps things secure without fussing with straps and bungees. Up front, you're going to have, this one has a basket with, because we have an extra battery, and sometimes if you get an upgraded battery package, they will put an additional battery in the basket, and then you can have that basket insert painted any color you want. The rear rack here is rated for 65 pounds, and all in all, if you don't like these bags, you also have a full lineup of accessories, including child seats and baskets, whether that be like tweed baskets you've seen from the past or more modern baskets with a solid finish. They just have a full lineup that all look really good, and you can kind of tailor everything, including your accessories, to kind of fit the theme of your bike, which is just a really cool feature of EBC. Now, when it comes to lighting, the Model S does have a front and rear light. This one has the upgraded technology package, so it's got high and low beams, but if you do not opt for technology package, then you would just have a standard beam up front, and you have a tail light slash brake light in the rear. Now, these are not super bright, but they're definitely bright enough to be seen and see on your path. All in all, especially with the high and low beam feature, it's a really nice addition, especially if you do a lot of city riding or late evening rides. So when it comes to the motor and battery on the Model S, all their bikes have this rear hub motor. Now, this motor on the Model S is rated at 500 watts nominally, but peaks at 750 watts. and it pumps out 60 Newton meters of torque. Now it's activated by a cadence sensor as the standard option, which uses a 12 magnet system, but should you want the more natural pedaling feel with your assistance, they do offer a small upgrade fee for the torque sensor version of this same motor, giving you just kind of that, well, more natural feel when you pedal. Now the battery on this is a 48 volt battery, and the standard battery is 14 amp hours, giving 672 watt hours with a promised range of up to 60 miles. Now you have several upgrade options for the battery, taking you from 60 miles like we have in the current setup to 100 miles, to 140 miles, and even a 200 mile option. Now granted, those are going to be dual battery setups, but just the fact that you can upgrade to give your bike 200 miles of range on a single charge is pretty wild in my book. Now the battery itself is UL compliant. It has a 2-year warranty factory, but should you want to push that out, they have 1, 2, and 3-year extension or additional years you can add to that coverage. And then one of the cooler features about Electric Bike Company in general is not only have they been around for over 10 years, but their bike frames have a 10-year warranty as well, plus that 2 years on the battery, extendable up to 5 years. So one of the better warranty availabilities in the entire e-bike market. Now the charger that comes with this bike is a 2.5 amp standard charger, but should you want faster charging, they offer a 3 amp upgrade or even a 5 amp upgrade to really get some quick charging times. And with a 200 mile range capability, you could really be in an interesting situation where you can cover a lot of miles in a short amount of time. So when it comes to components on the Model S, as you can guess, you have some choices. So what we have here is a 7-speed drivetrain, but should you not want that, you can opt for the single-speed setup. Now both of those will come with the same big 56-tooth chainring, and that, well, on the single speed will be mated to an 18-tooth cog in the rear. Now for the 7-speed drivetrain that we opted for, we still get the 56-tooth chainring, but in this case we get a 14 to 28 rear cassette. Then the derailleur is a Shimano Altus 7-speed derailleur, and that makes up the drivetrain here on the Model S. Now for braking, we have Tektro Dorado 4-piston hydraulic disc brakes mated to 180 millimeter rotors with a thickness of 2.3 millimeters. The larger thickness in my book is always good. It prevents wear, and as they heat up, it won't heat up as fast, and then ultimately help the longevity of the brakes. And EBC just told us recently that moving forward, from now forward, all EBC bikes will come standard with 4-piston hydraulic disc brakes, which is super cool. Now, when it comes to the saddle on the Model S, this saddle here is their backrest model. Now it's not the standard option. You can get a standard seat like we have here, but this option has the backrest. So if you have some back pain or you're worried about your lower back when you're riding, this is a good option to be able to just get that support while you're riding. But if you don't want this, they have a standard seat like this. Then they also have a wider jumbo seat, which is super comfortable. And if you're someone who just wants those big plush seats, they have that as well. And then you can do any of these combos in black or tan. Just know when you pick black or tan for the seats, that will adjust the color of the grip, because they kind of auto, in their builder online, it will auto coordinate the saddle and the grips. Now moving up to the front here, we do have a suspension fork. Now standard on this bike is a rigid aluminum fork, but we opted to get this suspension fork. Now this suspension fork has 80 millimeters of travel, and as you can see, it's got a nice rebound to it. Plus over here on this top of the right stanchion, you've got a lockout feature should you want to just make the fork rigid for whatever you're kind of riding you got going on. Now these bars here in the cockpit are the really typical standard beach cruiser bars, nice, wide, and swept back. But one of the cool things about EBCs with all their customization, they have 4 different styles of these bars. So we have the classic cruiser bars here, but you can even do a flat MTB bar, you can do a BMX style bar, or you can even do big ape hanger like motorcycle chopper style bars. And one cool thing about it is whichever one you pick, they all kind of change the look of the bike, kind of wildly change it. So I think it's a really cool way to make your bike look very different and unique and still have kind of that classic cool vibe. Now, up on these handlebars, like I said, we have tan grips because they do color coordinate the grips with the saddles. We have a push throttle here on the left. We have our PAS buttons and power button for the display here in the center. We have Tektro Dorado brake levers on both sides. We have an LCD color display in the center and a 7-speed Shimano index shifter on the right-hand side. Now, the wiring on here is all kind of cleanly put together with these housing cables and ran down into the frame, and it looks really good. There's nothing crazy hanging out or being too busy. And then you've got a couple wires back here coming out of the battery box, but again, down into the frame and internally routed. So all in all, the componentry in the cockpit not only has flexible options, but you can kind of change it to not only be changing the practicality and function with the drivetrain or the single speed, but then also the looks with the different handlebars and seats. Again, just adds to that EBC difference where you can kind of build the bike you want the way you want. All right, so for the color display, now just so you know, this display is a part of the technology package. So the bike, should you not get the technology package, will have the PAS buttons to control everything as far as your pedal assist for the E part of the bike. But should you want the extra data and display information and some kind of the functionality you can adjust, having the display is a nice feature. So to turn it on, we just turn on the bike and you get this liability screen. You just simply hit accept. And here you get the home screen of the bike. So up here you'll have your battery life indicator. Each one of these dots represents the current level of pedal assist. So you have 5 levels of pedal assist, each getting stronger as you go up. Here it says PAS is off. To change that, you simply hold the down button and you'll see that turn off. Now you have your PAS able to use. If you want to turn on your headlight, you hold the plus button and you see the headlight icon turns on and you have the headlight on. To turn it off, you'll do the same thing. Now, should you want to get beyond this from your home basic screens like your speed, PAS, power, odometer, temperature, if you want to get into more settings, you can hold the plus and minus buttons on the pad, and that will take you into the advanced settings. Now, a lot of these will require an admin password, which you can get from Electric Bike Company, but all the basic things you'll need are right here and accessible. So you have your standby time, how long it takes the bike to power off on its own, change the units of measurements, change the backlight brightness, change the theme or the colors of the display, and UI mode where you can kind of rearrange what stats and information you have on the display. Now, if we go to the parameters section, here you can input or change the wheel size. So like in this case, between 24 and 26, you can adjust the class. So class 2 or class 3, like we talked about, because it does ship as class 2, but you can go in here and make it class 3 with that password from EBC. Here you can adjust the pedal assist settings. You can reset the trip meter. You can look at your error codes or warnings. You can see the current status of the battery. And down below, you can see all the information about the serial number of the bike, the software, and the hardware. And that really wraps up all the information on the display. And at the end of the day, it's a nice, clean UI and easy to read. So well done on the display there. All right, guys, the wind is picking up. I'm sure you can hear it at this point. So I'm gonna stop talking and do what I enjoy most, which is taking this bike out for a ride. And we'll kind of chat about how it feels, how the motor feels, the braking, and just kind of how it handles in general. Then we'll wrap it up, go talk to Ben, and we will knock this out. All right, guys, out here on the Model S from EBC, Electric Bike Company. And when you get on these bikes, there's just no denying the comfort factor. The big wide seat, the cruiser bars, the 24-inch tires, and then just the fact that these are built so well and so durable and solid when you're riding, that I think the weight a little bit lends to just the stable, solid feel when you're riding. You don't feel like you're kind of worrying about any certain component of the bike or any rattles or anything like that. It's just, the analogy I always use with Electric Bike Company is the classic cars of the past, those big wide bodies floating down the road that look so good with their paint jobs. That's kind of what I think of when I think of EBC bikes, and the Model S is no exception. Now, we do have front suspension, and there's an option to get a suspension seat post, but this one has a rigid seat post. And that front suspension does a really good job of helping eating up bumps, going over curbs, speed bumps, potholes, just taking less stress off your body and letting the bike do more of the hard, heavy lifting in that department. The tires down below are 24 inches. There's an option between 26 and 24. On this one, there's 24-inch wheels with 2.1-inch tires. And these tires are branded by EBC, and they're white and tan with reflective sidewall. They have little rolling resistance. They're not making any noise, and they feel really smooth on the road, so no complaints there. The brakes are Tektro Dorados, and they are 4-piston calipers. And they have really good stopping power. So we'll get up to speed just a little bit here and do just a quick brake test. So my speedometer on my phone says about 18.5, but the bike's display says 19 miles an hour. So let's just do a quick brake test. 3, 2, 1. really good braking, nice modularity in there. You can feel the wall on them, and then you can kind of just increase pressure from there, and you kind of get whatever level of pressure you're looking for. It's really nice. The 750 watt motor has a little bit of noise to it, but it's not super loud. It's not silent, and I'd say it's on the lower end of motor noise that we hear. All in all, they're a joy to ride. They're comfortable, they're smooth. I personally put this one together, came out of the box 99% ready to go. I simply loosened and straightened the handlebars and then tightened them where I liked them, and I was done. I checked every other bolt afterwards. I found one loose bolt on a fender that probably just happened in transit, and I'd recommend you guys checking yours too. But all in all, it was super simple, and I've put a lot of bikes together. They usually take, I'd say, at least an hour to put together. This one was about 15 minutes and I was ready to go. So from beach days to farmers markets and kind of anything in between, these are just really solid, well-built bikes right here in America, delivered ready to go. And yeah, no complaints. I kind of enjoy riding these around. So let's go talk to Ben about his thoughts, and then let's get this wrapped up. All right, guys, we're at that time of the review where I close my mouth and Ben gets to give his thoughts on kind of the build quality and components of the bikes. Ben, I'm gonna jump out of your way, but I wanna say thank you to Feedback Sports. You guys know I harp on these Pro HD racks. They're just super durable. Even a big old heavy bike like this, the rack has no problem at all, and it's stable, the best part. They have a full lineup of tools as well. We'll put a link down below if you guys wanna check that out. Ben, I'm gonna step out of the way. Go ahead and run through your pros and things you just like about this Electric Bike Company bike.
All right, Mike, thanks. So with this one, it's easy to always talk about and bring up the stainless steel hardware that EBC chooses to use. The great thing about that is in a coastal community or where there's a lot of humidity, you're gonna see a lot less corrosion. That's one part about it. Stainless steel is also great because when you put a big basket on here with a lot of weight, especially with the battery in here, it's gonna hold that weight really well. You don't have to worry about the bolts shearing or breaking off. They're just stronger. It's a better way to go. There's no doubt about it. Maybe they're more expensive, but I think in every case it's worth it. The front end on this, the wheel in particular, has got a quick release skewer to attach the wheel. What does that mean to you? That just means that if and when you get a flat tire, it's very quick, very simple and easy to pull the wheel off so you can put a new inner tube in or patch, whichever you prefer. It's always fun to talk about the custom wood fenders and chain guards on these bikes. They do look really nice, and probably the only company, certainly the only one I can think of right now that does this much to the attention to detail on the bike. So you gotta love that. We'll get back to that in the next section, but it sure does look nice. This one, I haven't seen this very often from Electric Bike Company, but a newer, very robust aluminum spider and two-piece chainring with chainring guard. This thing's burly. It's gonna last a long, long time. This kind of means to me that they're building this bike for someone that hopes to have this bike for a lot of years with some great riding and not having to worry about anything breaking, bending, or having to replace it too soon. This bike also features 4-piston brake calipers, hydraulics. Does it need it? I don't know that this bike necessarily needs a 4-piston brake caliper, but what that means to the rider is there's going to be a lot of strong stopping, a lot of stopping control, not immediate overpowered stopping, mind you, but just a lot of smooth, very powerful, very consistent brake pull. So you got to love a 4-piston brake on pretty much everything. So those are the things that I like about this bike, Mike.
Nice, man. What kind of things would you improve?
Great question. So with this bike, what we'll cite is the fork and the stem. Why are we citing that? Okay, so this is what's referred to as an 1.125" threaded fork with a quill stem. It's strong enough because the diameter is there. However, threaded forks and quill stems that stick down into the frame, they're not as readily available, not seen as often. Also, they're heavier. I don't think that they are as strong if you are in a case where you put a lot of force on the wheel and the bars are going the other direction. They do tend to slip easier. So I would really like to see these guys step into a threadless fork and a threadless stem in the future. It's just stronger, lighter, and easier to find parts. With this bike, as much as I love these fenders, they're custom. Okay, that's great, but why have custom-made fenders that are made for a 26-inch wheel on a 24-inch wheel bike? You see the extra gaps on the front and back. Is it a problem? Absolutely not. Is it mechanically a problem? No way, but it just looks like it doesn't match the wheel diameter or circumference, and I just think that they can do that a little bit better and pair that with some flathead wood screws, both on the fenders and on the chain guard. Gosh, I think we're not in a wood shop. We're on bicycles. Everything should be, it seems as though Allen keys or maybe even Phillips heads would be a little bit more universal and easier to get onto, or use rather, sorry. This also uses an older style square taper bottom bracket spindle. A bike like this, these are kind of heavier bikes, and that's okay. They do ride nice, but it's an older bottom bracket square taper system. I just wish that all these e-bike companies would still embrace the newer hollow spindle technology, which just offers more strength, longer lasting bearings, etc. That would be something nice to see on these bikes. The kickstand placement on these bikes, I've talked about it before. It's right behind the bottom bracket. So if you happen to be backing the bike up, the pedals will run into the kickstand every time. And it's a little bit annoying when you're trying to park the bike. Not a big deal, but it does get in the way a little bit. The last thing that I'll mention on this is the fender struts, both on the front and the rear. The bolts to adjust where the fender sits according to the tire, they're hidden and they're really tough to get to. So if you ever have one come loose or you need to adjust it, gosh, as a mechanic, I would sure like to see that be easier to get to. And when it's easier to get to, that just means it takes less time to adjust it. Less time adjusting your bike means more time riding your bike. That's what we're all going for.
All right, guys, so the Model S from Electric Bike Company, what's our overall thoughts? Well, Electric Bike Company is doing something different than I think you can't find in almost any other brand in e-bikes. And that is not only American made, which is already kind of unheard of, but the fact that they assign your build to one mechanic who's gonna oversee it start to finish and personally build it. But not only that, you'll get a certificate of inspection when it arrives, where you can contact Electric Bike Company and you can speak to the mechanic who built your bike should you have any kind of problems, concerns, or even just questions. It's just not something you see often, and when you couple that with the fact that these arrive fully assembled at your door ready to ride, it's kind of a bike that should be on your short list if you're in the market for a beach cruiser. And if you're someone who likes customization and endless personalization, you really can't go wrong with Electric Bike Company as a brand. So hope you guys enjoyed this review today. If you haven't done so already, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. And until next time, I'll see you guys out on the trail.